The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination, and at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita should see in this way. Seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature, form is emptiness, emptiness also is form, emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas. No I, dhatu, up to no mind, dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind, consciousness, dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance, up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the 3 times by means of Prajnaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as true, since there is no deception. Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way. Teata om gate gate parasangati bodhisoha. Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train the profound Prajnaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Gala jubene jodambane ngoshe duchu ngayi dudu jen jobabo lama yi bujin zene song gandro zola jazelo. Agasamara Dashandara Zamaraya Te Atom Gade Gade Paragate Parasangade Bodhiso Baba Ganjo Sanji Gae Dembe Doji Abadoji Mebadoji Shevadaji Dagi Baji Medambe Jodanji Shedin Gaye So Girin Doja Yo Yewada Medonu Pejinan Yewada Nomba Junjim Bunzun Zun Yoji Daji De Jan De Na De The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas, high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Edam Guru Radha Mandala Ganya Radayami. Jadan Jaye Janam La Yanjo Bado Dani Jasoji Nagi Chenye Jipe Sonam Rola Benji Sanye Dubaju. Jadan Jaye Janam La Yanjo Bado Dani Jasoji Nagi Chenye Jipe Sonam Rola Benji Sanye Dubaju. Yadan Zaye Yanam La Yanjo Bado Dani Jasoji Nagi Chunye Jibe Sonanji Rola Benji Sanye Dubaju. So welcome everyone to the wonderful teaching we are about to receive on Bodhichitta. It is called the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment. And we find that it was passed down from Lord Atisha. And we find it in the lineage of extensive deeds where this extensive explanation can be found in the Lam Rim teachings. And it's 6 causes and 1 result. And it shows you how specifically you have to go about achieving bodhicitta. It's a very specific process and it's a result. So therefore, all results depend upon causes. So it's important that we set our motivation, that we're here listening to this Dharma teaching to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. Juje, menga, mashi jenden. So it's very difficult to achieve the human basis, but we have it. We have it right now. So we need to utilize it for the opportunity that we have right now and utilize it to practice the great vehicle Dharma. So now we have the things that are necessary to practice Dharma here. So in dependence upon this, what dharma should we practice? So if we look at what we should study and what we should practice, we see that these are the teachings that are for beings of three capacities. The teachings shared in common with beings of small capacity, the teachings shared in common with beings of medium capacity, and the teachings for beings of great capacity. So first, what do we need to realize or understand? It's important for us to first understand previous lives, the existence of previous lives, not the clairvoyance to understand them, but just understand that there are previous lives. So then you need to have the reason for previous lives and the reason for future lives in order to establish them. All sentient beings have previous lives and have future lives. So what is the reason that we state that we have previous lives? We realize that now we have consciousness. And this consciousness that we have, or this awareness or consciousness that we have or are in or abide with, this consciousness that we have comes from a previous consciousness, that comes from a previous consciousness. And when we look back, we find nothing that is non-consciousness that caused consciousness. And then when we look at that regression, we look at the previous moment causing, this moment being caused by the previous moment being caused by the previous moment being caused by the previous moment, we find that this consciousness is beginningless. And therefore we can establish based on that we have beginningless lives, because we can trace back our consciousness in this life in terms of when we were born. And where did that come from? It came from the intermediate state that came from the previous life before that. And when we trace back consciousness, we know that consciousness always causes consciousness. No non-consciousness can cause consciousness. So we find that we a beginningless consciousness when we look at it logically. So when we die, that consciousness doesn't just go away. It goes to the future life. Just like the mango tree produces the future mango tree that produces the future mango tree. Then ngami the shin ngami shin. And the previous mango tree was caused by the previous mango tree. And the future mango tree will be caused by the previous mango tree. So this is how we look at consciousness. Consciousness came from a previous consciousness, and the future consciousness came from the previous consciousness. So the current consciousness came from a previous consciousness, and the future consciousness will come from a previous consciousness. Or the next moment of consciousness after this moment comes from this moment's consciousness. So what dharma do we practice? The great vehicle dharma is what we should practice. So if, as a foundation for the great vehicle practice, we need to have equanimity. So we find in the Guhya Samaja teachings that it says with the foundation, the danyon ditsa, the foundation of the equanimity is like the ground that the ninji sapun. So when you put the seed of compassion into the ground of equanimity, then danyon the sapun de long yanger de long. The Guism, the Sawandupi long, Yanger. Then Okay, so when it is when we have the ground of equanimity and the seed of compassion is placed in that fertile ground, then the fruit of bodhicitta will occur. So I'm just I don't have the text. So the fruit of bodhicitta will occur. So we find this in the Guhya Samaja Tantra. So it's important for us to understand that all sentient beings are our mother. Less so. So what is the reason that we say all sentient beings are our mothers? Like ourselves, all sentient beings have beginningless lives. Therefore, in those beginningless lives, we have had that relationship with them because we have had beginningless lives. So we recognize the first step of the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment is recognizing that all sentient beings are our mothers. So we say they are our mothers in previous lives, since our consciousness is beginningless and their consciousness is beginningless. In a previous life, they were our mothers. So if we were able to see all sentient beings as kind as the mother of this lifetime was as kind to us as her, then we would be able to remember. If we're able to look at the kindness our mother has shown and then apply that to all sentient beings, it then falls into the next step called remembering their kindness. So we recognize first that all sentient beings are our mothers, and then secondly, we remember their kindness. So then we recognize how nice it would be if we could repay their kindness. And how could we really repay them? What would be the best way to repay them? If we could somehow make it so they had happiness and make it so that they were free from suffering. So then that falls into the next 3 steps. So we have recognizing all sentient beings are our mothers, remembering their kindness, a wish to repay their kindness, and then love through the force of attraction and great compassion. So love through the force of attraction wishes that they have happiness, and great compassion wishes that they are free from suffering. Then the marshi, jenden, jenzo, yongshang. So then, in dependence upon this wish that you could repay their kindness, you then have what is called love through the force of attraction, that has all sentient beings as the object of observation of the immeasurable thought. May they all have happiness and the causes of happiness. And then, in dependence upon that love through the force of attraction, one generates what is called great compassion. And the object of observation of that great compassion is all sentient beings, and they're being free, and the immeasurable wish that they are free from suffering and the causes of suffering. So then what we do after we have this love through the force of attraction and great compassion, in dependence upon that, we generate this extraordinary attitude that says, I will take it upon myself as the task of freeing all sentient beings. So this extraordinary attitude takes place as a result of the love and compassion that you have for all sentient beings. But bringing sentient beings to a state of happiness and freeing them from suffering is not something that we can do at this time. We're handicapped. We can't help them all in the proper way. So who has that ability? The Buddha has that ability. So then we generate the result, which is the desire to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, to be able to free them from suffering, to be able to bring them to happiness, so that we can repay their kindness because we remembered it and know they were our mothers. The sit. Without generating the causes for bodhicitta and generating bodhicitta, you cannot become a Buddha. Then it's important to practice the Parshin Dru, the 6 perfections. Parshin Dru Dan. George. So the four practices. They're in the Lam Rim. I'm forgetting them right now. Maybe at the end, Lobsang Dunya, if you're listening, you'll help me with this translation. Just write it in the question and answer if you're listening. I know that there's 4 practices. Four practices of gathering disciples. So in dependence upon, it's important to practice this bodhicitta and the 6 perfections and the 4 practices, which we'll find 4 preparations, I think. 4 preparations, so we'll move on from there. Then it. So at the root of the 6 perfections, the wisdom realizing emptiness is very important. It's because it gets rid of the grasping at true establishment that creates cyclic existence. So the antidote to grasping at true establishment, Tenzin Nyepo Doni Dubishira, is the wisdom realizing emptiness. The wisdom realizing emptiness that gets rid of the grasping at true establishment gets rid of all of the afflictions. So it's for that reason, studying it's very important. So if we were to summarize it, that's how we would summarize this teaching. But there are many understandings. You can say that great vehicle mind generation has definitions and has divisions and has measure, and there's many different. When we look at the general meaning of perfection, we find the section on bodhicitta to be very immense with divisions and so forth. So we have that on tape when Rinpoche teaches bodhicitta in the Lam Rim and the Atisha's lamp, I believe, also. So you can find all of those very expansive explanations of bodhicitta there. So no matter what vehicle you're practicing, the understood or not, the donate.
Oh,
so the direct so the direct realization of emptiness is important no matter what vehicle you're practicing, whether it's the hearer's vehicle, the solitary realizer vehicle, or the bodhisattva vehicle. All of it is necessary to realize. Hearer path, solitary realizer path. So we find if you're practicing the hearer path and the solitary realizer path, these all become pathways to one result, which is Buddhahood. And we find that that in what the Longare basically so in Manjushri's text it says that no matter what no matter what path or whatever vehicle one is practicing, that vehicle necessarily leads to the ultimate vehicle of the great vehicle. So all vehicles are to one destination, which is the great vehicle result, Buddhahood. So if you were to summarize it, that's how you would say it. And Lobsang Dunyu, the text name, Giant Sanchu, the names of Manjushri or something, something like this. The quote. Dene. So right now we have such a difficulty in the world with this COVID-19 disease. And what we can do to be of benefit is to recite mantras of Tara, Om Tare, Tu Tare, Tu Re Soha, and recite the medicine Buddha mantras of Teata Om Bekenze Bekenze Maha Bekenze Bekenze Ranzo Samogati Soha.
Quality Tarimas, Tarasat, quality Nevayoris, quality Tarima, Tutara, Gigi Juice, Tutara, Vegetala, Tagaji, but the main jewels of Tajil Ju Nevayoris, Tutara, Gigi Juice, Dore no juice, Torres, Nasa Mabak.
So we find when we break down the mantra of Tara and what the meaning of it is, we see the Om Tare. The first Tare means that Tara is a liberator from cyclic existence. The Tu Tare means that she is a liberator from fear, the fears that the eight fears and so forth. And then the third Om Tare, Tu Tare, Tu Re refers to Tara being a liberator of illness and sickness. So we find so much power within this mantra, and it's very applicable to the current state. And so I've received the White Tara initiation from His Holiness the Dalai Lama many times. The Trua Dan Lenja. And I received the medicine Buddha initiation from Ling Rinpoche, and is the Dalai Lama many times as well. So in Bodh Gaya, I received the medicine Buddha initiation from Ling Rinpoche. And the 13 deities of Yamantaka as well. And he and as well as the other deities mentioned as well, he received the blessings from Ling Rinpoche. So I was so, my mind was so, my mind felt so nice to be able to be in Bodh Gaya there for this. It was very, my mind, it felt so good to be in Bodh Gaya to attend this. I rejoice greatly in this experience that I had because it was such a powerful place to have this experience.
So
Ling Rinpoche. So now we have reincarnations of my teachers, Trijung Rinpoche and Ling Rinpoche. Ling Rinpoche is now become once again admired. It's very important that we pray for their long lives, and may they abide in this world with us. Yeah, we'll do. So we'll do some question and answer. And again, if you're there, Lobsang, I never mind help. Oh, it was the sacred words of Manjushri. I was afraid it wasn't Jambel Shelong. That's spoken words. That's what I get confused. Okay. All right. It doesn't look like we have any other questions. I'll just give one moment in case anybody is about to type a question, but we look good. I think we're okay. So there is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this time the board meeting after class. So there we go. Here we go. And Brian, is bodhicitta absent of true existence? Brian, true yure.
Yeah.
Brian yure.
Yeah.
Then kon the senche demba madrupa semche. So yes, bodhicitta lacks true inherent existence. So the Rinpoche, the true dendan, the sanche, demba yoba, demba mepa. So yes, no, to be the exact words that you used, bodhicitta. So does bodhicitta, is it absence of true existence? So yes, bodhicitta is absent of true existence. All phenomena, all things are absent of true existence. Then the sanche, the demba madrute. Okay, so if we were to say, so why is bodhicitta absent of true existence? It would say it's because it dependently originates. And so we just showed that bodhicitta dependently originates because we showed that there are 6 causes that lead up to that result of bodhicitta. So we see when we look at the different types of dependent origination of causes and conditions, cause and effect, and dependent origination that is a collection. Bodhicitta is both that collection and cause and effect. So all phenomena dependently originate. They do not all dependently originate from causes and conditions, but they all dependently originate at least in terms of a collection. Okay, next question. If bad karma we create is in the nature of suffering, why don't we feel suffering when it is an imprint on our minds? If the bad karma we create is in the nature of suffering, why don't we feel suffering when it is an imprint on our minds? Why do we only feel suffering when it ripens? Maybe the all-pervasive compounded suffering is a subtle suffering of having negative imprints on our mind. I am inclined to believe that our ripening karma is not merely random or based on their strength or ripen at the time as well as cause and conditions, but also always plays a role in our spiritual evolution. Yeah, the specific karmas we experience help us. Karma doesn't help us. Karma is just an action that's a seed that placed into our continuum, and it ripens when there are causes and conditions, and it ripens randomly in dependence upon those causes and conditions. So help us in some way to deepen our relationship to life, compassion, and growth spiritually. Is this true? Maybe not some all benevolent force that lets us feel our karmas in way benefits us, but rather that is the nature of our minds that allows us to somehow learn from our negative karma every time. We don't learn from our negative karma every time. We have repetitive behaviors, recidivism. If everybody learned from negative karma, then we wouldn't ever have anyone relapse on drugs or alcohol. We would never have anyone go back to prison. We would never have anybody fall off their diet they were on. We would never have anybody stop exercising because they know it'd be healthy. We'd never have anybody do anything negative to themselves because they would know that at some point in time it felt bad. So no, we aren't in control the way that it feels. Then gewe le sapun yure, then ne dipi le sapun jena dunya yongdu. Then gewa le sapun jena the dewa yongdu. Then kontriwa the dunya chaba duje dunya the ju dunya the son yure. Then dakpa chaba duje ge dunya the ngatsu sem that's dunya yurebe the tramo. 강인선의 탄다 산상아츠 대화 이래 산상아츠 둥야 이래 내는 공이 삼파 직신의 닥파 둥야 이래 센 둥야 이래 강인선의 the 둥야 the 차바두제 둥야 이래 the 여바 얘네 the 소와 둥야 연구도 탄다
소 둥야 여비 처음에
So we don't always have a suffering in terms of an experience. When we say pervasive compounded suffering, then the Kshishina Dunyal Song, that's true.
다 제발 뒤지 동에서 근데 레는 좀 뭐고 좀 공부들에서 동에 코아체 공부스 난들래.
So when we look at the Pramanavartika Karika, and it speaks of what the pervasive compounded suffering is, it's the contaminated aggregates that are forced upon us by karma and afflictions. So this is the pervasive compounded suffering. It's this forcing into these aggregates of contamination over and over again, beyond our control. From lifetime to lifetime, being forced into any among these 5 aggregates over and over again. So that's the pervasive compounded suffering. So the Ju Dunya Gare.
Ju Dunya Tsuwa.
Then the Dunya. So there are 3 types of suffering. So pervasive compounded suffering is one of them. So the first type of suffering is the suffering of suffering. That's the suffering we experience when we get a headache or break our arm, or because we're suffering, we have some kind of mental suffering, we suffer. So that kind of suffering that we know, and we know what that looks like and experience, is called the suffering of suffering. The suffering of change is the second type of suffering, and this is a contaminated happiness, basically. So the example Rinpoche gives is if you're hot, you go in a cold room, you experience happiness, but that happiness is loaded with suffering because it will change. It will turn into, oh, now it's too cold. So that's the suffering of change. And that pervasive compounded suffering is being forced again and again into these contaminated aggregates. So it's this basis in contaminated aggregates, that forced process that we will have to go through if we are not a foe destroyer at the end of this lifetime. We will be forced into aggregates. The Rinpoche, the Da Jomba Ma Lena, the Ngatsu, the Chapa Duje and Dunya Yurbe. Yoba. So if you haven't achieved the foe destroyer state, then you have pervasive compounded suffering. The Shanchu Semba.
Chapa Duje Dunya Yuro. Center call Kuitan Neduna, Dajuma Tuzuna, and quad Kuitan.
So I see the foe. So there's a foe destroyer even with remainder, the Teme Dajum.
Teme Dajum.
Shansen Yomare.
Shansen Dajum Sanjiro.
Okay, so in the Hinayana vehicle, when a being becomes a foe destroyer and still has the aggregates left within cyclic existence, they're called a foe destroyer with remainder, and they still have what is called the pervasive compounded suffering, even though they're a foe destroyer. But if once a bodhisattva becomes a foe destroyer, he or she is a Buddha, so they no longer have pervasive compounded suffering. So the line of demarcation isn't foe destroyer necessarily. Bodhisattva foe destroyer or Buddha does not have pervasive compounded suffering. But there are two categories of Hinayana foe destroyers, those without and those with the remainder of the pervasive compounded suffering. So the role that karma plays is just cause and effect. It doesn't have any type of consciousness. It isn't a god. It doesn't have any kind of motivation to do anything except cause a result. Just like milk doesn't have a motivation to become chocolate milk, but when you add chocolate to it, it becomes chocolate milk. Likewise, when the causes and conditions are present for a karma to ripen, its result will ripen, but it isn't ripening because of some influence the karma is having, some force the karma has that is inherently existent or something. And that it says, then the last question, it says, some force of, but rather that it is in the nature of our minds that allows us to somehow learn. So we already addressed that. So we don't always learn from mistakes or karma. It's actually our karma that will allow us to either learn or not from our mistakes. So you can't really look at it when you study cause and effect in logic, and you always apply that to the Buddhist doctrine. You don't get into these potholes as much because you can't posit any external force other than cause and effect, or other than this moment being caused by a previous moment. And the experience of this moment was caused by some sort of imprint that was created within beginningless lifetimes. So trying to figure out why, what, when, where, and how, the Buddha said, is more difficult than emptiness. It's really an omniscient being that can understand the cause and effect relationship with each of our experiences and so forth. Yes, so I hope that helped. Okay, so I don't see any other questions. I'm so glad to see so many people on. Rinpoche is very happy. Nice talking with you, Brian. Rinpoche's health is going very, very well. Everybody who's been following it, I just rejoice in all of your prayers and want to say thank you. And any of Rinpoche's old students who would like to get in touch with him that see this, just go through the center's website and you'll get to me and you'll get to Rinpoche. And then you can FaceTime Rinpoche. So, all right, we need to do some prayers to end this. I almost didn't. Concluding mandal offering, dedication prayer, Samantabhadra dedication, long life prayer for His Holiness, and long life prayer for Rinpoche. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the three times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness, all powerful Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, the spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Suji Rinpoche Guzi Shapi Denralam.